Monica Richardson scrolled through the property listings on her laptop while David poured them both coffee in their home office. They'd been searching for their dream home for 3 months, looking for something in the mainline suburbs of Philadelphia, good schools, safe neighborhood, space for the family they were planning to start. What about this one? Monica turned the laptop toward David. 5 bedrooms, finished basement, pool, listed at $850,000. David leaned in to look. That's beautiful, and it's in Lower Merion, great school district. Monica clicked on the listing agent's information. Carol Henderson, Henderson Premier Properties. She's got good reviews. Should I call her? Let's do it. What Carol Henderson couldn't know from a simple phone inquiry was that Monica and David Richardson weren't just potential home buyers. They owned Richardson Financial Services, one of the largest independent mortgage lending companies in the Philadelphia metro area. Their company had originated over $300 million in home loans in the past year alone, and they had relationships with virtually every major real estate agency in the region. Monica called the number listed and reached Carol's voicemail. She left a message. "Hi, this is Monica Richardson. I'm interested in viewing the property at 847 Woodland Drive in Lower Merion. My husband and I are pre-approved buyers, looking in the $800,000 $0.2 million range. Please call me back to schedule a showing." Carol Henderson returned the call 3 hours later, her voice professional but noticeably cooler after running a quick search on the Richardson name and finding their social media photos. "Mrs. Richardson, thank you for your interest in 847 Woodland. Unfortunately, that property went under contract this morning, but I'd be happy to show you some other listings that might be more appropriate for your budget." Monica's radar immediately activated. She'd refreshed the listing 20 minutes ago, and it still showed as active. "Oh, that's disappointing. It must have happened very recently since it's still showing as available online. Sometimes there's a delay in updating the system," Carol said smoothly. "But I have several other properties I think you'd love. What did you say your pre-approval amount was?" "We're approved up to $1.2 million. We're looking in the $850,000 to $1 million range ideally." There was a pause. "And you've been working with a lender? You have actual pre-approval documentation?" Monica felt her jaw tighten. "Yes, we own a mortgage company, actually, Richardson Financial Services. We're pre-approved through our own institution." Another pause, longer this time. "I see. Well, the mainline market is very competitive right now. Properties in your price range go quickly, but I can show you some homes in perhaps Norristown or Conshohocken, still good areas, more affordable." Both neighborhoods Carol mentioned were significantly less affluent than the mainline suburbs Monica and David were targeting. The suggestion to look there wasn't based on budget, it was based on demographics. "We're specifically interested in Lower Merion, Radnor, and Haverford," Monica said firmly. "Our budget accommodates those areas." "Of course," Carol said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "Let me see what I have available. Can I call you back?" Carol didn't call back that day, or the next. Monica finally called again on day 3 and left another message. This time Carol responded via text. "Hi Monica, still looking for appropriate properties in your range. Market is tight right now. We'll be in touch." David watched his wife's frustration growing. "She's stalling. She's discriminating," Monica corrected. "She looked at our names, saw we were black, and decided we couldn't actually afford those houses, even though you told her we own a mortgage company. Maybe she didn't believe me, or maybe she thinks we're lying about our finances. Either way, she's not taking us seriously as clients." David leaned back in his chair. "You know what we should do? Document everything, then file a complaint." Monica shook her head. "We should do more than that. We should test her." Over the next week, Monica and David conducted their own investigation. They had a white colleague from their office, Jennifer Walsh, call Carol about the same properties the Richardsons had inquired about. Jennifer used similar financial parameters, similar budget, similar timeline. Carol responded to Jennifer within 2 hours. She scheduled showings for the next day. She sent over multiple listing details. She was enthusiastic, available, and helpful. When Jennifer mentioned she needed mortgage pre-approval, Carol immediately offered recommendations, never once questioning whether Jennifer could actually afford the properties. The contrast was stark and documented. The Richardsons had recordings of their calls with Carol, copies of their text messages, and Jennifer's experiences provided a direct comparison showing disparate treatment. But Monica and David decided to take it one step further. They would confront Carol directly, on video, at a property showing. They had Jennifer schedule a showing of a $950,000 home in Radnor. Then Monica called Carol and insisted, after multiple follow-up attempts, on seeing the same property at the same time, claiming she'd seen it was still available and wanted to view it before making any decisions. Carol reluctantly agreed, clearly hoping the Richardsons would be discouraged by actually seeing homes out of their price range. The showing was scheduled for Saturday at 2 p.m. Jennifer arrived first, was greeted warmly by Carol, and given a full tour of the property. She texted Monica when she was finishing up. Monica and David arrived at 2:45 p.m., deliberately overlapping with Jennifer's showing. They pulled up in their BMW SUV, both dressed professionally, and approached the house just as Jennifer was wrapping up her tour. Carol stood in the driveway, her smile fading as she saw the Richardsons approaching. Jennifer, playing her role perfectly, greeted them as strangers. "Hi, are you here to see this house too? It's gorgeous." "We are," Monica said. "We have an appointment with Carol." Carol's professional mask was firmly in place, but her body language was tense. "Mr. and Mrs. Richardson." "Yes, though I should mention, there's already significant interest in this property. I'm not sure it will remain available in your price range." "Our price range is up to $120 million, David said calmly. "This property is listed at $950,000. That's well within our budget." "Yes, but with multiple offers, the price will likely go higher. These situations often result in bidding wars." Jennifer, still playing curious observer, asked, "Oh, you think this will get multiple offers? You didn't mention that to me, and I just toured it." Carol's eyes flicked to Jennifer, realizing the trap she'd walked into. "Well, it's hard to predict. The market is volatile." Monica pulled out her phone, ostensibly to take photos, but actually starting a recording. "Carol, I'm curious. When we first contacted you 3 weeks ago about properties in this area, you suggested we look in Norristown and Conshohocken instead. Why was that? I was trying to give you options across a range of neighborhoods, but you didn't suggest those neighborhoods to Jennifer when she called about the exact same properties with the exact same budget." Carol's face flushed. "I don't know what you're talking about." David pulled out printed copies of their documented interactions, text messages where Carol claimed properties were under contract when they weren't, delayed responses to their inquiries versus immediate responses to Jennifer, suggestions to look in different neighborhoods. The pattern was undeniable. "Jennifer works for our company," Monica said. "We asked her to contact you using the same financial parameters we provided. The difference in how you treated her versus how you treated us is textbook housing discrimination." Carol took a step back. "This is entrapment. You set me up. We documented disparate treatment," David corrected. "You chose to treat us differently based on our race. We just made sure to have evidence." Jennifer, dropping her role as a random buyer, added, "For the record, I told you I was a first-time buyer with modest savings. The Richardsons told you they owned a mortgage company with assets in the millions, yet you were enthusiastic about helping me and dismissive of them. Why do you think that is?" Carol looked between the three of them, clearly realizing the severity of her situation. "I think you should leave." "We're leaving," Monica said. "But first, I want you to understand something. Richardson Financial Services finances approximately 30% of home purchases in this area. We work with every major real estate agency. Or we did. As of Monday, we're suspending all loan approvals for transactions involving Henderson Premier Properties." Carol's eyes widened. "You can't do that." "We absolutely can," David said. "We're a private company. We choose who we do business with. And we don't do business with people who discriminate against us or our clients." He handed Carol a business card. "That's our corporate attorney. She'll be filing a formal complaint with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. You'll be hearing from them soon." Monica added, "You'll also be hearing from every real estate agent in your firm who suddenly can't get their clients financed because you cost them their relationship with one of the area's largest lenders." As they walked back to their car, David put his arm around Monica. "Think that got through to her? I think she's about to have a very bad week." The impact was immediate and severe. By Monday morning, Richardson Financial Services had formally notified Henderson Premier Properties that they would no longer approve loans for any transactions involving the agency until current discrimination concerns are resolved. Since Richardson Financial handled financing for roughly 30% of home sales in the area, this was catastrophic for Henderson Premier. Real estate agents within the firm began panicking as deals fell through, clients couldn't get financing, and commissions evaporated. The firm's broker owner, Richard Henderson, Carol's husband, called David directly. "Mr. Richardson, I need to understand what's happening. You've cut off our entire agency over some alleged incident with my wife." David's voice was professional but firm. "Your wife engaged in textbook housing discrimination. We have documented evidence of disparate treatment based on race. We've filed complaints with the appropriate authorities, and we've decided as a private business that we no longer want to work with your agency. This is costing us hundreds of thousands in lost commissions. Then perhaps you should have ensured your agents weren't violating federal fair housing laws. Carol says she was set up, that you deliberately created a situation to make her look bad. We documented her treating us differently than a white colleague with identical financial parameters. That's not a setup. That's evidence of bias that was already present." Richard was quiet for a moment. "What would it take for you to reconsider? At minimum, Carol loses her license. Your entire agency undergoes fair housing training. You implement monitoring systems to track how agents treat clients of different races. And you commit to being audited annually for the next 3 years. That's excessive. Those are our terms. Take them or don't. But understand that we're also in contact with other major lenders in the area. They're watching how this plays out. If we demonstrate that discriminatory agencies face real consequences, they may follow our lead." The conversation ended with Richard promising to think about it. The Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission and HUD investigations moved forward. Monica and David provided their documentation, recordings, text messages, Jennifer's comparative experience, and video of the final confrontation. Carol's initial defense was that she'd been trying to protect the Richardsons from disappointment by steering them toward more realistic properties. But when investigators compared her treatment of the Richardsons to her treatment of other clients, the pattern of racial discrimination was undeniable. White clients with lower pre-approval amounts were shown premium properties immediately. Black and Latino clients, even those with higher budgets, were steered toward less desirable areas or told properties were unavailable. The investigation expanded to other agents at Henderson Premier. While Carol was the most egregious offender, investigators found evidence that the agency culture allowed and even encouraged steering based on race. 4 months after the initial incident, the Pennsylvania Real Estate Commission suspended Carol Henderson's license for 2 years. Henderson Premier Properties was fined $75,000 and required to implement comprehensive fair housing training and monitoring. But the financial impact of losing Richardson Financial's business was more devastating than any fine. Henderson Premier's market share dropped by 40%. Agents left for other firms, and the agency's reputation never fully recovered. Richard Henderson eventually sold the agency to a larger firm, taking a significant loss. Carol, her license suspended, found work in retail sales, a dramatic step down from her previous 6-figure income as a top-producing agent. For Monica and David, the experience delayed their home search by 6 months. They eventually found their dream home, a beautiful property in Haverford that they purchased working with a black-owned real estate firm. But more importantly, they'd achieved something bigger. Their case became a precedent in Pennsylvania fair housing enforcement. Other lenders began implementing similar policies, refusing to work with agencies that engaged in discrimination. And real estate agents across the region suddenly had a powerful incentive to treat all clients equally. 2 years after the incident, Monica was invited to speak at the National Association of Real Estate Brokers conference about using financial leverage to combat housing discrimination. "We had power as lenders," Monica told the audience. "We chose to use that power not just for ourselves, but to create systemic change. When we cut off financing to a discriminatory agency, we sent a message: discrimination has real, immediate consequences." She showed slides detailing the impact. Henderson Premier isn't the only agency we've taken action against. Over the past 2 years, we've suspended lending relationships with 4 agencies involved in discrimination complaints. 3 of those agencies went out of business. The 4th reformed completely, becoming a model for inclusive practices. An agent in the audience raised his hand. "Some people say what you did was retaliatory, that you used your business power to punish someone personally." Monica nodded. "We anticipated that criticism, but here's the thing, we're a private business. We choose our business partners based on their practices and values. Carol Henderson violated fair housing laws. Her agency had a culture that enabled that discrimination. We chose not to do business with them anymore. That's not retaliation, that's accountability." David, sitting in the audience, smiled. His wife had become a fierce advocate for fair housing, speaking at conferences, consulting with other lenders, and working with civil rights organizations to develop strategies for combating housing discrimination. Their company had grown significantly, partly because they'd earned a reputation as lenders who cared about equity. Clients of color specifically sought them out, knowing they'd be treated fairly, and their commitment to refusing business with discriminatory agencies had actually strengthened their market position.
One evening, as Monica and David sat in their Haverford home, the one they'd eventually bought after the incident with Carol, they reflected on the journey. "Do you ever think about Carol Henderson?" David asked. Monica considered the question. "Sometimes. I don't take pleasure in what happened to her career, but I also don't regret holding her accountable." "Do you think she learned anything?" "I hope so, but honestly, whether she did or not isn't really my concern. What matters is that other agents saw what happened and changed their behavior. That's the real impact." Their doorbell rang. It was their neighbors, the Johnsons, a white family who'd welcomed the Richardsons to the neighborhood warmly. "We're having a block party next weekend," Mrs. Johnson said. "We'd love for you to come." After she left, Monica smiled at David. "Remember when Carol suggested we look in Norristown because we'd be more comfortable there?" "I remember. She assumed we wanted to be in a predominantly black neighborhood. Instead, we're here, in a diverse neighborhood where we're welcomed as people, not judged as a demographic." David pulled her close. "We earned this, not just the house, but the ability to live wherever we want without discrimination, and we used our experience to make it easier for others," Monica added. "That's what matters." 3 years after the incident, David and Monica were featured in a Philadelphia magazine article about black business owners making an impact in the region. The article detailed their mortgage company, their fair housing advocacy, and the Carol Henderson case. Carol, now working in retail and living in a modest apartment, read the article with a mixture of resentment and regret. She'd convinced herself for months that she'd been unfairly targeted. But time and perspective had begun to shift her understanding. She'd taken a fair housing course as part of her license suspension requirements. The training had forced her to confront her own biases, the assumptions she'd made, the ways she'd treated clients differently based on race, without even fully realizing it. Carol had grown up in a predominantly white suburb. She'd worked in real estate, serving primarily white clients in primarily white neighborhoods. She'd never thought of herself as racist, but the training, the case against her, the evidence of her own disparate treatment, it all pointed to a truth she'd been avoiding. She had been discriminatory. She had let bias guide her professional decisions, and she had harmed people through her assumptions. Carol drafted an email to Monica Richardson. She wrote and deleted it 3 times before finally sending. "Dear Mrs. Richardson, I know this message may not be welcome. You have no reason to care about my apology, but I want you to know that I've spent the past 3 years understanding what I did wrong. I've taken training, worked with a therapist, and confronted my own biases. I see now that I treated you and your husband differently because of my assumptions about race and finance. I was wrong, I caused harm, and I'm deeply sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know that your case changed me. I'm a better person now, though I wish I'd been that person before I hurt you. Sincerely, Carol Henderson." Monica read the email twice. She showed it to David. "What do you think? Is it genuine?" David read it carefully. "It sounds genuine, but does it matter? I mean, I appreciate that she's grown, but that doesn't undo what she did." "No, it doesn't," Monica agreed, "but it might mean the next black family she encounters, in whatever context, gets treated better, and that's something." She drafted a brief response. "Carol, I appreciate you taking the time to write. I'm glad you've done the work to understand your actions and their impact. I hope you continue that work and that you use your experience to help others recognize and address their own biases." Monica: "It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't absolution, but it was acknowledgement that growth was possible, that people could change, and that change had value, even if it came too late to undo the original harm." As Monica sent the email, David asked, "Any regrets about how we handled everything?" Monica thought about it. The confrontation, the financial leverage they'd used, the career that had been destroyed, the systemic changes they'd helped create. "No regrets," she said finally. "We used our power responsibly. We created consequences for discrimination, and we made the housing market a little bit fairer. That's exactly what we should have done." They looked around their beautiful home, the one they'd earned the right to live in, the one they'd fought to access, the one that represented not just personal success, but a small victory in the ongoing fight for housing equity, and they knew their work wasn't finished. Discrimination still existed, bias still shaped the housing market, but now there was a precedent, a model for how to fight back, and a community of lenders willing to use their economic power to demand change. That was the real legacy of their confrontation with Carol Henderson. Not one agent's suspended license, but a movement toward accountability in an industry that had allowed discrimination to flourish for far too long.
Thank you very much for listening. Please let us know what you think of this story in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any other videos.